day, everyone. I am Cynthia Reddock-Downes, Chief Executive Officer of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. And first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Otero of 5G Americas for giving me the opportunity to share our story with you. Today, I'm going to talk about Trinidad and Tobago's work, what we've done towards enabling digital inclusion for digital transformation within our country. I'll be looking at the Telecommunications Authority, providing some information about us, statistics on the telecommunications sector in Trinidad and Tobago, some information about our digital inclusion gap, our digital inclusion survey 2021, outcome and findings, and the universal service initiatives that we've put, and other initiatives that we've put in place to enable our digital inclusion objective. So a little bit about us. The Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago started operations in July 2004. We were originally started by an act of parliament. We are responsible for managing the spectrum resources for telecommunications, for the numbering resources, and also for the broadcasting sector. So we are a tri-sector regulator, a combined regulator, a converged regulator, as some people would also say. And I've identified here the major objects of the Act that set us in motion. First of all, we had a responsibility for creating an open market for telecommunications, ensuring the orderly development, protecting the interests of consumers, facilitating universal access to telecommunication services, encouraging investment, and regulating broadcasting services. And so in light of the mandate and responsibility that we have to Trinidad and Tobago, our strategic focus over the next 3 years, 2022-23 to 2025, we have a vision, and our vision is that we are the leading regulator in the ICT sector, enabling an empowered and connected society. So our main strategic focus is to ensure that the public has access to reliable and affordable services, which can reach all households and ensure that everyone is connected and they are able to be part of the development of our digital economy and digital society. So I thought that I'd start off first of all by providing you with some statistics that we collect on a quarterly and annual basis, and that we also publish on our website. So we have annual market reports and quarterly market updates as well. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we have one network-only provider, which is an organization that provides international network services. We have 8 providers of telecommunications networks and services. We have 2 mobile operators, and we have fixed voice services as well, and fixed telephone services. We have 11 fixed internet operators, 13 pay TV subscription providers, 36 free-to-air radio broadcasters. We also have 4 free-to-air television broadcasters, and we have 15 organizations that broadcast over cable. So this is a little bit of information about our market. Now, some of the statistics that we provide as at December, we have fixed voice subscriptions, which are in the region of 326,500. We have mobile voice subscriptions, which are over 2 million at this time. We have fixed internet subscriptions of 373,600. Now, what I should also tell you is that our household component for Trinidad and Tobago is just over 400,000. So we have approximately 401,000 households within the country, and a population of just around 1.4 million. We have active mobile internet subscriptions of about 859,000, and we also show our active mobile subscriptions in a percentage format. We have subscription television of 226,800, and we also show that in the percentage format. So today we really are talking about digital inclusion. And I should explain that digital inclusion is a little bit more than what we would call digital access or digital, the old term digital divide. What we tried to do in 2021 is that we conducted a digital inclusion survey. And that inclusion survey went beyond digital divide, because we did have digital divide surveys in 2007 and 2013. But our aim was also to look beyond the digital divide and look at areas, for example, skills in using ICTs. What is the motivation to use ICTs? And what is the level of trust of our population in using ICTs? And all of this information we felt would help us to determine the types of initiatives that we needed to bring digital transformation and to also bring connectivity to all areas of Trinidad and Tobago. The authority conducted a digital inclusion survey in 2021 into 2022. And the survey was designed and conducted particularly to measure the number of ICT users in Trinidad and Tobago, to determine the extent of the digital divide within Trinidad and Tobago, to benchmark the progress of Trinidad and Tobago's ICT development against other countries, to identify population groups and geographic areas most at risk of being digitally excluded within Trinidad and Tobago. We also inform the choice of universal service and digital transformation initiatives at TATT to support the country's Vision 2030, macroeconomic goals, and our national ICT plan, and also to support the international obligations such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and ITU Connect 2030 agenda. So in coming up with our digital inclusion survey, we decided that we would have a cross-sectional survey, we would have questionnaires, and we'll also have persons who would actually conduct the survey at homes throughout Trinidad and Tobago. The inclusion survey comprised 18 indicators, which looked at access or ICT reach, participation and usage of the technology, trust and confidence, and readiness or digital literacy, which captures our ICT capabilities, affordability, and skills. And these were our findings. We found that on average, we had about 7.86, and those persons who may be familiar with the ITU's IDI that was used many years ago to measure a country's performance, we continue to use the IDI as the indicator to determine how well we were doing in various communities throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We found particularly, we actually analyzed the various age groups within the population to see how much they use the ICT and what their connectivity was. And we also surveyed male and female persons in the population to determine the level of access by gender. We also looked at rural and urban connectivity. This would have enabled us to determine what sorts of activities we needed to carry out as a regulator to ensure that rural and urban communities all had access at the level that was required. And we would provide these slides later on, but certainly many of the slides would indicate the level of connectivity, those who had internet, and the rural-urban divide. Generally, this slide shows what we call our digital development dashboard. And what it shows is that network coverage by the mobile network stands at 100%. Network coverage with 3G is at 100% and 4G at 75%. And all of this was at the end of the previous financial year, the previous year, 2021. Mobile phone ownership averaged 83.9%. And access to ICT devices and so on at home, we have all those indicators are at around 81%. We also have information on this dashboard about mobile and fixed telephone subscriptions. And you would note that subscriptions were at 144, which is approximately 144%. That means that for a population of 1.4 million, we had just under 2 million subscriptions, or just about 2 million subscriptions. Internet use was important for us to know, and households were using the internet at about 79%. Connectivity was in the region of 82%. And we also had male, female, the difference between, who used the internet more than the other. We also identified age groups. So the slides would show that the 15 to 24 age groups, as well as the older individuals, also felt that there were no barriers to use of the internet. We also looked at prices and whether prices affected access to the internet as well. And so, looking at the information that was provided from the Digital Inclusion Survey, the authority determined that there were a number of initiatives that we needed to do, and some of them started before the survey. We felt that it was important that we work with the government of Trinidad and Tobago to provide connectivity to the unconnected. And in particular, persons who were waiting in public areas to access government services. And so we devised what we call TATT Wi-Fi, which is a government of Trinidad and Tobago initiative. And it's instituted in public libraries. So all public libraries, persons who are waiting on services in public libraries or using public libraries have access to the internet free of charge. Public transport hubs, similarly, all the public transport hubs in the country have access to the internet on a platform we call TATT Wi-Fi, and it's provided by the authority using funds, universal service funds that we have available. Schools without internet connectivity at the time are also being provided with TATT Wi-Fi services, and we are providing access to these services in areas within the school, for example, the computer lab, libraries, administrative areas within schools. And we also have public waiting areas in hospitals, health centers, and other related health institutions within the country. So what this means is that we are ensuring as far as possible that people remain connected as they move about Trinidad and Tobago, as they work and as they play. This bridges the gap between those persons who have access to services at home. In this way, they will continue to have access while they're accessing government services. And so far, we've completed TATT Wi-Fi at 12 transport hubs, 23 public libraries, 48 schools, and so on. And it's about 62 public health institutions. And we expect by the end of the program to provide access to 160 or so public health institutions. Persons with disabilities. As you are aware, what persons with disabilities, who we call PWDs for short, are an integral part of countries. It's important that we all pay attention to the needs of persons with disabilities and the PW community generally. So the authority has also determined an initiative to include PWDs by providing subsidized telephone services. So we provide a subsidized phone to persons with disabilities, with any disability. Once you are someone who is registered, formally registered, and we provide a subsidy which is in the region of just under $100 US. And this subsidy, we plan to roll out to 22,000 persons with disabilities over the next 2 years. We have started already with 225 participants as of December, but I can say that as of July 2023, we have over 362 participants. So the scheme is ramping up a bit, and we expect to provide services, this subsidy, to as many disabled persons as possible. Now, in hand with this facility, we have the Caribbean Video Assistance Service, which is a relay service that enables PWDs to not only connect, but also to communicate directly. They are able to speak with agents who assist them with getting around, conducting their business, and they also provide interpretation services where they can relay conversations and so on to persons who are hearing impaired. In this initiative, we collaborate with the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, which is an organization of CARICOM, which is part of the Caribbean community. And the Caribbean Telecommunications Union manages the CVAS, what we call CVAS for short, service, all in the interest of persons with disabilities. So this service goes hand in hand with our provision of mobile phones to persons with disabilities. We are very proud of this service, and we are hoping that it would eventually be adopted throughout the Caribbean. Now, what we have also provided tablets, and in fact, over 10,000 tablets to schools, students of public schools, and this was particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, the students have been able to keep the tablets, which we provided at the time, together with internet connectivity. So we provided a SIM together with the tablets, and we funded that entire program over a period of approximately 2 years. The tablets have been retained by the students, but in this way, we have ensured that they maintained connectivity, school children in particular, and many of them who were at the time unable to afford such services, certainly the connectivity. So this was one of our major projects where we provided ICT devices to students of public schools. Again, an opportunity to bridge the digital divide. Also, we provided spectrum to our service providers, and for the first 2 years of this scheme, the spectrum was provided under a forbearance agreement with the authority. That is, we provided the spectrum to our operators to enable them to provide increased services during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. So that was well into last year, 2022. And we've also continued to support service providers by providing the same spectrum, so they've been able to keep that spectrum for another 3-year period. In this way, ensuring that connectivity continues to all the persons who were provided with additional connectivity during the COVID-19 period. In this way, we are ensuring that particularly those who were unable to afford the services, can get the services at lower cost and can remain connected over the next 3 years. What I should also say at this time is that the authority has a universal service fund that it uses to provide access to those who do not have access, the persons who are unserved, the households that are unserved or underserved, and also those who have affordability issues. And that's why we have in the past, and as I mentioned before, provided tablets for students of public schools. And that initiative was particularly to address the affordability initiative and also to address connectivity for students in public schools. So in addition to the TT Wi-Fi program that I mentioned, as well as the provision of tablets to students and the provision of mobile phones with assistive technologies to persons with disabilities initiative, along with the CVAS initiative, we also have a responsibility to establish ICT access centers. And these centers are being established together with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And these centers are intended to provide access to technology, particularly in underserved communities, but also to provide training opportunities for persons in these locations. For example, we have had our Girls in ICT Day activities, as well as ICT Day activities for young men. And we've used those access centers that have already been established to also support those programs. And over the past few years, we've had programs that looked at developing websites, developing shop fronts on the internet for young people, young entrepreneurs, coding activity as well. And so we are encouraging young people using the access centers to take the opportunity provided by the training initiatives. And in fact, we've had very good responses from young persons in all of those activities, the Girls in ICT Day activities and the ICT activities designed particularly for young men. So the ICT access centers are intended to make sure that we bridge the digital divide and the access gap. We have been able to develop ICT access centers in certain parts of Trinidad and Tobago. We are currently in the process of providing access centers in areas called Lansnore, Roxborough, which is in Tobago. We intend to also have in areas like Lopino, Moruga, and Fifth Company, which are more rural locations in Trinidad and Tobago. And here I have in the slide an example of what one of our access centers that are targeted for rural communities would look like. And in this way, the authority provides the ICT equipment for the centers, and the government would provide the facility. And so our service providers would provide the ICT equipment, and all of this would be funded by the Universal Service Fund. In this way, we are bringing connectivity to underserved and rural communities and to young people in those communities who want to access training that's provided by both the authority and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We also have a number of infrastructure projects. Again, these are funded from the Universal Service Fund, and these projects are largely focused on bringing broadband infrastructure through universal service initiatives that we've contracted with our service providers or concessionaires. The projects we've had so far, we have one in Tobago, which is nearing completion in an area called St. John's Parish, which includes areas like Parlatouvier, Bloody Bay, and Lansformy. And this particular project we expect to be completed at the end of August of this year. And it is intended, that this project will bring affordable broadband internet access service to a community that is underserved. And we expect over 300 persons and a number of small and medium-sized businesses to be affected and to have access to this project of fiber to the home in St. John's Parish in Tobago. We are also embarking on a digital skills program because you would have noticed from our digital inclusion survey that a large proportion of the population have basic skills, and it was measured at around 75% who had basic skills, but only 4% of our population had advanced skills. And so together with our Ministry of Digital Transformation, we are embarking on a digital skills program and together with the ITU to improve the skills of our population. And we are looking at 10,000 individuals. The program has already started with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, providing some additional basic skills to young people with certifications. And we are continuing at phase 2 and phase 3 to provide more advanced skills, utilizing digital tools and platforms and products to enable our population to be able to develop more entrepreneurial skills, and in this way to be able to use the marketplace that's available to them for providing services globally. The internet has given us that opportunity to provide services globally, and in this way, by developing the digital skills of our young people and our population generally, we enable them to be able to compete in this global marketplace. And so our digital skills program, which started towards the end of last year and is continuing into this year, together with the ITU and our Ministry of Digital Transformation, is a major activity for the authority. And we are doing this to bring further development, not just to our country, but also to the individuals being able to develop, to grow businesses, and to keep them self-employed to a great extent. We also have recently started a school broadband upgrade study, and this is also being done in conjunction with the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the ITU, and Microsoft. And with this study, what we're doing is that we are accepting the ITU's encouragement that countries should move towards meaningful connectivity. And so this school broadband upgrade study is intended to determine whether the broadband that we have in schools, the existing bandwidth capacity that's been delivered to schools, whether it's being utilized, and what is the impact of an upgrade in that bandwidth? How would it be used? Is the current capacity sufficient for the school and for the activities that they need to carry out? And this project collaborates with the Microsoft platform and content providers to design a program for 10,000 individuals to provide, to enable them to, particularly in schools, to enable them to utilize the bandwidth to provide meaningful connectivity in schools, to enable them to carry on their curriculum. So this is an important study for us, and we've just embarked on this study, which we expect to be completed by early in 2024. So to summarize our activities, we did say digital inclusion for digital transformation. And I just thought that I'd end with the country's digital transformation strategy, which is a national strategy. We intend to develop our digital society, digital government, and resulting in a digital economy. And of course, there are a number of activities. Starting with digital society, we're talking about meaningful connectivity, and our role in this entire transformation is largely about the digital society. Meaningful connectivity, that's our major responsibility here, ensuring that we have the ICT access, we have the ICT engagement, we have the connectivity that's required at the standard required so that members of our society are able to use the government services that are available to them, and that we are able to also assist them in taking part in our digital economy by developing their skills, providing quality access, and ensuring that the services are provided at costs to them and to the public that are affordable. So further closing remarks. According to the ITU's digital regulatory output, 2.7 billion people in the world remain unconnected. The digital divide persists in rural areas across income, gender, and age groups. New and deep digital divides have emerged, particularly for vulnerable groups, including women. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we are doing projects to enable digital inclusion, equal access of all citizens, residents of Trinidad and Tobago. So on behalf of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, I would like to thank once again 5G Americas for giving me the opportunity to explain how the authority intends to transition from current stage to digital inclusion, digital connectivity, meaningful connectivity, access, and the provision of affordable services to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.